Hey everyone, it's Tuesday, January 28th, 2025, and I'm sorry, but tonight's loss to the Winnipeg Jets was simply unacceptable. There's no two ways about it. I will dive into it, but by and large, the Montreal Canadiens had no business even coming close to losing this game, but they allowed themselves to do it. Time to drop the puck on Montreal Hockey Talk. Hey everyone, Costa here from Montreal Hockey Talk, and thank you for joining us once again for another podcast. And before I get into it, I got to give a little bit of an explanation because I have taken a few days off. One was because I had to do a hockey game for the Hawkesbury Knights play-by-play, obviously, which I do every so often. The other is that suddenly and inexplicably, we lost power the other day for a prolonged period of time. So as opposed to being able to broadcast, I was shivering. So there it is, more or less. At the end of the day, power's back. I'm back on board, and the Montreal Canadiens are as cold as fuck. And that's where we stand after tonight's hockey game. And, you know, it's okay to lose to the league's best team. I have no problem with that. But the way they lost, I mean, they didn't lose to the Jets. They lost to Kyle Connor again. And it always seems like every time this guy plays the Montreal Canadiens, he scores a pair of goals. It pisses me off. I mean, there's no reason why Connor should be able to always be as open as he is. And whether it's, you know, just a lack of defensive coverage by the Canadiens or whether it's mismatches, there's no reason why this guy should be as open as he is all the freaking time. And if you watch tonight, one of his goals, Mike Matheson just completely blew his tires on it. But, you know, to Matheson's defense, and I'm going to defend him a little bit here, it wasn't so much his fault. It wasn't Montembeault's fault. It was a screenshot, bad rebound, and, you know, Connor just reacted a little bit more quickly than the others did. I mean, it happens. It's a game of hockey. There's no explanation. It's just how the puck bounces, pretty much. And it bounced off the Connor's stick. He put it home, and lo and behold, he's got his first of two on the night. The second goal, however, I mean, the one that came right at the end of the second period, and I'm sorry. There's no reason why anybody should be able to come in and score like that. And there's no reason why Kyle Connor should be able to come flying in from basically his own bench unchallenged and get a shot on goal like that at the end of the period. I mean, it's the type of thing that, you know, it's been happening time and time again for the Montreal Canadiens. And you know, it all starts with, you know, another 40-minute game. And the Canadiens really, the last three, I would say, their first periods have been putrid, garbage. I mean, you can take them and toss them, right? Tonight, they actually came out. They played strong in the first. They were dominant. Let's just say what it is. Until the time that they took the penalty, and then a few minutes after that, the Canadiens completely dominated the Jets. And that's the type of hockey you wanted to see. But lo and behold, Connor scores, the Jets get on the board, and, you know, the Canadiens seem a little bit flustered. That's okay. It happens. Okay, then in the second period, they disappeared. 3 shots on goal after having dominated the league's best team in the first. I mean, and that's not to say that we expected the Canadiens to be dominant throughout the entire game. That was less than likely to happen at any given time, right? But, you know, to be just fall off the earth like that in the second period, which is normally their best period, as luck would have it, they completely disappeared. And a lot of that had to do with, you know, lapses in coverage, whether it was Carrier losing Scheifele. And it's not just Carrier. Right off that face-off, when Scheifele scored, Suzuki lost them. And normally the play is off the draw. The centerman's responsibility is to cover the other centerman. In this case, it was Mark Scheifele. He didn't. He let him go. Carrier picked him up. Okay, you got him. Nope, lost him. Went to the boards. Scheifele came off the boards. Carrier lost him. Why? For the next reason I'm going to bring up, but he lost them anyway. Comes off the boards, bang, puts it home, and it's 2-1. And then you get the backbreaker with, I think it was 1.5 seconds left in the period is where they adjusted it when Kyle Connor scores. I mean, that goal literally took the air right out of the Bell Center tonight. The fans were into it. The Canadiens were playing well. And then, a 2-1 game's a 2-1 game. But to allow that complete lapse right at the end of a period, you play until the buzzer. You don't assume that a team's just going to take the time off when the puck's dumped in, especially not when their bench is actually closer to your zone. And that's essentially the second period, right? Where the Winnipeg Jets bench is closer to the offensive zone than it is the defensive zone. So it's easy for them to get somebody off the bench with fresh legs and come in on a forecheck, right? Very easy. But, the Canadiens just missed it completely. And then in the third, you had an empty net goal, whatever the case is. The Canadiens played better. Lane Hudson hit a goal post. It wasn't their greatest game. Let's just put it that way. And, one of the things that I got to bring up as well as I'm talking about all this stuff is, there are people out there who think I'm too hard on Sam Montembeault. And they're right. I am hard on him because, there were points in this hockey game where everybody was freaking out because Montembeault made a couple of big saves. And the reason why he made those saves was because he was giving out shitty rebounds. So all he was doing was correcting a mistake that he already made. All right. So before you start praising him for making big saves, just think about if you were to make the saves properly, how there wouldn't be those second chance opportunities where he'd have to be spectacular. All right. Rebound control has been a big issue with Montembeault, and I will continue to push that. I'm sorry. It's just a plain and god-awful truth. You can't beat around the bush here. You take a look at any single one of his games, other than maybe, I think about 2 weeks ago when the Canadiens first started getting onto their run, where he started playing a little bit better in front of his own net, especially after Dobish joined the team, and he looked like he had a little bit better control of his faculties. And I gave him credit for it. Go back, look at those shows, and I gave him credit for it. But then, all of a sudden, boom, the same thing happened all over again, where he's giving up bad rebounds and teams are scoring bad goals. Now, granted, tonight, I'm not going to blame him, but there were opportunities that the Jets had in this hockey game because Monty gave out bad rebounds. I'm just putting it out there. It's the truth, and there's no two ways about it. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. It's my opinion. I'm allowed to have it. But, I mean, it's simply, one goalie criticizing another. Stefan Waite does it on RDS all the time, and he's not even a goalie. He's a former goalie coach who got, notoriety because, one, he was working for the Habs, and two, his brother was Jimmy Waite in Chicago. There you go. All right? That's all there is to it. As a goaltender, I can come out there and say stuff like that. I can put things out there that, okay, it's nice to be a fan and say, okay, he plays well, and he makes big saves sometimes. But when you need those saves, sometimes he doesn't make them. And therein lies part of the problem. But, again, I digress. Now, moving on, one of the other things the Canadiens did tonight that really got under my skin, and it led to that third goal, that famous goal, the second by Kyle Connor, was that they keep watching the puck. Okay? And you look at all five guys on the ice on that goal, and they're all watching Hudson and Coudl go get that puck. And the reason Coudl and Hudson stopped skating is beyond me. All they had to do was get to that puck before anybody else and rim it around the boards, and the period was over. Instead, they cruised in. They were both back. They were both able to get to that puck way before Johansson got there on the forecheck. But they didn't. And so they allowed the Jets to get possession of the puck, and while everybody was like, oh shit, look what happened, Kyle Connor comes right off his bench, right up the slot, gets a pass, boom, in the net. Nobody's aware he's there. Not a single player from the Montreal Canadiens even turned their head to look and see behind them what was going on. The minute that puck gets turned over, the minute your defensemen make that mistake, the first responsibility of any forward on that team is to look for a trailer. Nobody did. They all watched the puck. They all had blinders. And that's what led to that goal. And like I said, it was a backbreaker. Hence the reason why I say this game is unacceptable, because every single one of the goals in tonight's hockey game could have been avoided had the Canadiens not been puck watching. Every single one. Whether you go back to the first goal that was scored by Kyle Connor, where everybody was looking for the puck but couldn't find it, or whether you're talking about Suzuki and Carrier losing Scheifele, especially right off the faceoff, you're watching to see where the puck goes. Okay, you watch the puck for a second, you lost your man. Okay, Suzuki, pick somebody else up. He didn't even do that. He was standing in the slot with nobody around him. And then Carrier takes Scheifele over to the boards. The puck moves away from Scheifele. Carrier turns his head, lost Scheifele. And then he had to chase it to the front of the net. Scheifele puts the puck in. Stop watching the puck. If Marty St. Louis is asking these guys to play man-to-man, then play man-to-man. Okay, if the puck comes to you, or you're able to get the puck because you're pressuring the puck carrier, fine. But if you're on somebody, okay, and the puck's moved, don't go to where the puck is going. Stay with the man you're with. Unless you see somebody else cover him, he's still your responsibility no matter what. Okay, so don't chase the puck. You get possession of the puck, everything changes. You're not playing man-to-man anymore. Now you're on offense. That's fine. But so long as the Jets have possession of the puck, you should be covering somebody. It's kind of the reason why everybody hates man-to-man defense in the defensive zone. It's because oftentimes when the puck's turned over, nobody's got anybody to cover. So you might have two guys going after the same player, and then one player is loose. Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor. That's the whole point. All right? That's why most teams play box plus one, where they've got four guys covering the four different areas of the zone, and one guy who's functioning more or less as a rover going to pressure the puck or to apply secondary pressure on the puck, okay, and support. That's why most teams do that. The fact that the Canadiens play man-to-man, hey, listen, they've been doing it very well lately. Don't get me wrong. But they've also been caught watching the puck. And every time they get caught watching the puck ends up in the back of their net. So stop the puck watching and figure out how you're going to cover your man without doing that. It's okay to look and see where the puck is. But it's not okay to lose your man in the process. There's a reason why they call it peripheral vision, right? Where you can pick up the puck on the side, through the side of your eyes and be able to, not have to turn your head and lose the man you're with. Use that function. I mean, it's kind of obvious. And I don't know what more to say. It's a hockey game the Canadiens could have won. And that's what's the most maddening part of this game. They could have won it. They played well enough on the bookends, the first and third period, to win the hockey game. And, you got to give credit to the Jets for not taking a penalty. I think maybe I saw one instance where I might have thought maybe the referee could have made a call. But overall, they played a very clean game. And the Canadiens, well, David Savard took a penalty for breaking somebody else's stick with a slash. And then he looked up like, oh, you know the rule. You broke the stick, you do the time, right? It's simple, right? Carrier, it was a slew foot, dude. Your knee hit the back of a guy's leg and you knocked him on his ass. That's called tripping. No argument to be had, okay? Every penalty that Montreal took was legitimate. Tonight, I had no problem with the officials. Granted, sure, they gave 4 power plays to the Jets and none to Montreal, but Montreal really didn't push the Jets enough to actually merit one. Whereas the Jets did exactly that. They pressured the Canadiens' defense, forced them to make errors in the defensive zone, and, drew penalties. Whether it was Jack-Eye in the front of the net with the tug or the 2 other penalties that I just mentioned, the Jets worked for those calls. And there's a reason why they have success as the best power play in the league, because they draw penalties like that, because they're always in perpetual motion. They're always applying pressure to the puck. They are coached extremely well by Scott Arniel. There's no two ways about it. So you lick your wounds tonight. You take a look at what's coming ahead, and the fact that we lost Caden Gooley, that's a huge loss for the Canadiens, because he has been their most consistent defenseman for the last little while on both ends of the ice. There are a lot of guys that have been making mistakes out there. I can point them out, including Lane Hudson, who we all love. He's been making mistakes defensively. One tonight on that third goal. I mean, that has to be cleaned up. And I'm sorry that I'm, picking on the kid. He's a rookie. I get it. He's going to make those mistakes, and you live and die by those mistakes. But those are mistakes that he should know better. But, it is what it is. Game's over. Habs lose it 4-1. And we move on to the next game where we will be playing the Minnesota Wild. And the big question in that game is whether or not the Wild will allow Marc-Andre Fleury to play versus the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal. It's most likely going to be Fleury's last game in Montreal after a storied career. And you would think that, that they would show him a little bit of respect and allow him to play one final game in his home province. But not every team is like that. And last time they were here, they didn't let him play. So, I mean, go figure. If Bill Guerin understands this, he's a veteran. He gets it. He'll say, you know what, coach, let him play the game. All right, you're sitting third right now, I believe. Hang on, let me take a look. Yeah, they're sitting third in the Central Division with 62 points, right? Hey, they're 2 up on the Colorado Avalanche, in the wild card race and whatever. So, I mean, just let him play. Show him a little bit of respect for everything he did in his career. Stanley Cup champion, great guy to be around. For everything that everybody says is a great teammate, a prankster, somebody that likes to get along with everybody. He's friendly. He doesn't have a bad bone in his body, and he's always smiling. I mean, come on. He still looks like he's 18 years old. That's the one thing I hate about Marc-Andre Fleury. He hasn't aged a day since he came into the league. Still walks around with a backwards baseball cap. It makes me jealous because while he's still got all his hair, mine's gone the way of the dodo. That pisses me off. But other than that, man, Fleury deserves to play that game at home. And it's going to be another tough test for Montreal. Granted, Winnipeg, Minnesota doesn't have Kirill Kaprizov. He's going to be out for the next 4 weeks after undergoing surgery. So they're going to be missing their biggest weapon on offense. But they do have other guys that can play on that team. If I look at their roster, as I bring it up, hang on. Let's take a look at their roster. You got Eriksson Ek, you've got Foligno, you got Marcus Johansson, Matt Zuccarello's on that team. I mean, there's a lot of good talent on the Minnesota Wild. And, of course, in goal, they've got Philip Gustafsson and Marc-Andre Fleury, who I mentioned. And on defense, I mean, you take a look at them with Bogosian, Brodin, Dermott, Faber, Middleton, Spurgeon. They've got good defensemen as well. And that's the reason why they've had so much success this season. So, it is what it is, right? Minnesota's going to be a tough task for Montreal. They always are because they play a really defensive style of game. But Montreal can beat Minnesota. That's the nice thing about it if they play within their system. If they make sure that they're going to play man-to-man, play man-to-man. If you're going to attack offensively, make sure you attack off the rush and play between the dots. There's where Montreal has their strengths. That's where Slafkovsky scored from. He was right in front of the net. It was a beautiful pass from Caulfield to Suzuki to Slafkovsky for the clapper and the one-timer, and the Habs had the lead for the first time in a long time, getting the first goal of a hockey game, I should say. But, those are few and far between lately. Why? Because Montreal gets away from their game plan. But if they come out and they're dominant, they're not going to have a problem. Now, there is one more thing I want to bring up. Because a lot of people, I said it about Arbor Jacki a couple of games ago, and I said it previously about David Savard. And that, my friends, is that god-awful flip pass. And I joked on Blue Sky today that I was going to write a book called David Savard and the Useless Flip Pass. And I was going to make his character a cross between Jack Sparrow and an Oompa Loompa. Because it seems like when he just doesn't move anymore. He decides, I'm going to flip the puck out and give it to the other team so they can force it down our throat again. And it's not just him. There's other defensemen that do it as well. But when he's in the lineup, and I could be wrong, it seems to me like the Canadiens do it more often. When he wasn't in the lineup, they were making more fluid passes, getting out of the zone. They were coming out with speed. They were attacking the opposition where, when you're flipping it out of your zone, you're really like relinquishing possession and backing off, right? When Savard wasn't in there, they were attacking. It was nonstop. Moving forward, moving forward, moving forward. That's what I want to see from this team. When they do that, that's when they have the most success. When they get away from that game plan, they tend to give up goals. So stop being so passive against a lot of these teams. Even if they have a good offense like Winnipeg did tonight, right? One of the other things too, right, that I didn't mention before is the fact that the Canadiens were playing at home and didn't try to match the Jake Evans line versus Connor and Scheifele. Legitimately, they're your best defensive line, and they have the speed to actually keep up with those guys on the ice. So why would you not match them up against that line and give a little bit of freedom to Suzuki, Caulfield, and Slafkovsky to bring more offense? Or maybe slot the second line in against another line so that, you would be able to have a little bit more secondary scoring. You need that second line to produce. When they don't produce, that's when the Canadiens have difficulty, right? It can't be a one-line team. You need that balance between all four lines. Right now, they're not getting that. They're getting more scoring from the first line than any other. So we got to get back to getting performances and guys from all four lines producing and creating offense. And so if you're going to delegate the Evans line to cover Connor and everybody else, that's fine. At least you're giving him a role and you're giving him a task, right? So then you can allow your other three lines to flourish. That's not happening. And you got to take advantage of the fact that you're playing at home to do that. Other teams do it against you. You may not notice it, but they do. There are a lot of coaches out there that match lines. There are some that don't, like Marty St. Louis, but there are others that do. So what do? You try learning to match lines against teams that you have less firepower than, okay? So when you're playing a team like a Winnipeg Jets or, let me think, or you're playing the Edmonton Oilers, you try to match up against those teams in putting your best foot forward and putting your best options against their best. And your best option is not to take your best offensive line and put it against their offensive line, because you know what? You're going to lose them in coverage. If there's one thing that I've noticed recently is the fact that Suzuki and Caulfield have struggled in their own zone. You may not have noticed it, but I have. Tonight is one of those nights. Caulfield having a hard time coming back on the back check and covering anybody, getting pushed off the puck. Suzuki not knowing who to cover at certain points in the game. And the captain prides himself on the way he plays D. Caulfield's still working on it. It's a work in progress. It always will be for him because his first job is to score. But when he doesn't play solid defensively, he tends to not get the offensive chances that he normally does. So get back to playing a 200-foot game. Everybody. We're going to have better options. We'll be better. And it'll be a much more fluid game. And it'll come back to the identity the Canadiens had during their winning streak, where they were firing on all cylinders, whether it was in the defensive zone or the offensive zone. But now it's going to be a very important report from the medical staff to see how Caden Gooley is. I don't know whether or not he twisted his ankle, which is what I think it was, or whether he hurt his knee going into the boards. But he hit a rut. His ankle bent in an awkward way, and he fell sideways into the boards and kind of hammered himself pretty good. But hopefully he'll be okay. He is prone to injury, but, fingers crossed he's going to be fine. We'll see you on Thursday night, hopefully with a better result than tonight. Go Habs, go.